The landscape here kind of reminds me a little bit of traveling through Italy.
In April 2024, I find myself in the backseat of a car going up and down Brazilian hills. Out the window, thousands of perfectly planted rows of coffee whiz past.
Totally symmetrical, very orderly rows. That's just like Italy, row after row after row of vineyard.
And even though it's my first time here in Brazil, it feels familiar. If you replace the coffee trees with wine vines, hey, you're basically near where my parents live in Italy.
Kind of like the South American version of Toscana.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And in front of me, driving the car, is a coffee farmer, Vicente Pereira. And I gotta say, I like his taste in piano music.
Yeah.
Vicente is driving me through a region here in Brazil, Minas Gerais. And the scale of the coffee farming here, it blows my mind. Like, we passed by one farm that employs a literal village.
You see a very big farm. Very big.
Yeah.
1,200 people working.
1,200 people.
Yeah.
And these coffee farms employing thousands of people stretch on for miles.
They have millions of
Millions.
coffee trees.
Really?
Yes. Just here.
This region, Minas Gerais, it is the world's coffee growing epicenter. Brazil is the world's largest producer of coffee, and half of that coffee is grown here in Minas Gerais. Billions and billions and billions of kilos of coffee every year. But all these mega farms we're passing through, they grow coffee the traditional way here in Brazil. They grow commodity coffees. They produce huge volume at low cost and sell the coffee for a low price. And the flavors reflect that. To us specialty coffee drinkers, they're really uninteresting. They're going to be roasted pretty dark, used in cheap supermarket blends, instant coffee, hotel coffees. You get the idea. These coffees produced at huge volume, very cheap, they fuel big global commodity coffee businesses.
It's very big. Yeah.
But squeezed in the middle of these giant farms sits an anomaly, a bit of a misfit. A farm a fraction of the size of its neighbors.
It's a small farm. We have 25 hectares, only coffee.
Run by a farmer who is not interested in doing big economies of scale for corporate coffee. This is Vicente Pereira's farm, Fazenda Paraíso.
Paraíso.
Paraíso. Paradise.
Yes, like paradise.
And it really is a little slice of paradise. We arrive at the farm, and although Vicente is almost 80, he bounces down the driveway in his striped farmer's shirt, suspenders, and a well-groomed white beard.
Bom dia.
Bom dia.
Bom dia.
Bom dia. Tudo jóia? Tudo bem?
And he leads me to the veranda with a gorgeous view of rolling hills.
Okay, look. All the forests go around.
It is extremely beautiful.
Yeah.
And for Vicente, this farm, Fazenda Paraíso, is one big experiment in pursuit of specialty coffee. A massive challenge to grow coffee the non-traditional way. Here's the thing. For almost all of Vicente's life, he has not been in coffee farming.
I am a chemical engineer.
He ran his own successful business.
We had a mining consulting company.
And at the end of his career, in his late 60s,
We sold it for an Australian group.
and he then sunk the majority of that money into this coffee farm, Fazenda Paraíso. A coffee farm that, at the time, was growing coffee the traditional way, just like his massive neighbors. But partly because he loves specialty so much, in his late 60s, he sets himself up for a huge challenge. Transform Fazenda Paraíso from growing only commodity to almost entirely specialty coffee.
Why did you choose not to retire?
Retired is not a word for me. I like challenges every time.
And this was going to be a huge challenge because almost no farms at all in this part of the world grow entirely specialty coffee. It's really, really rare. But over the next 10 years, he hires people like Jessica,
Eu sou engenheira agrônoma.
a university-educated agronomist, to be his quality assurance manager. And she loves the job.
This is the best of the world for me.
He trained himself up and built the facilities he needs to evaluate coffee.
This one is electric machine, fantastic.
Cupping tables, tasting rooms, grinders, sample roasters.
What was the investment price?
22,000.
And after 10 years, he achieved something remarkable for coffee farms here in Brazil. He defied the traditional way coffee is grown in Brazil, huge volume for cheap, producing uninteresting commodity flavors, and instead focused entirely on specialty and got there. The majority of your coffee is between 83 and 87 points.
Yes.
The majority of what he grows is specialty coffee.
Let's drink a coffee.
Sure, let's drink a coffee.
Brazilian way.
Vicente walked me from the veranda into the cupping room, and we taste the fruits of his hard work.
It's very nice Swiss coffee.
These are gorgeous specialty coffee flavors.
Lovely.
Good.
It's a lovely coffee. Very easy drinking.
Yeah.
Yep. Nice body. Nutty.
These delicious, distinctive flavors of chocolate, nuts, caramel. This is the classic Minas Gerais flavor profile at its best. And looking at Vicente tasting his own coffee, I can see how much joy it brings him to produce these flavors.
Yeah. I like this. I like to drink a good coffee, and everything. The challenge is to do better. Every day, every month, every year.
But as it turns out, Vicente's challenge is not over. In many ways, he's actually only halfway through. Because if Vicente sticks to the traditional way coffee is sold in Brazil, his farm is not going to survive.
It's not enough. It's not enough.
And this is what this episode is about. We are looking at how Vicente is trying to reimagine how coffee is sold in Brazil. Finding the right buyers for your specialty coffee, it is life or death for any coffee farm anywhere that wants to prioritize growing specialty flavors. Every coffee producer who wants to walk the path Vicente is walking has to reinvent how coffee is sold in their regions. And in this episode, we're going to look at the journey Vicente is on to try to find better buyers for his coffee. Will Vicente's journey of trying to find better buyers inspire other farmers in Brazil to also turn their back on commodity coffee and prioritize specialty? Or will his journey be a cautionary tale? I'm James Harper, and this is Filter Stories, the untold stories hidden in your cup of coffee. And this is Series 3 of The Science of Coffee, a journey into coffee's hidden microscopic secrets. So, Vicente, this previously successful entrepreneur, gets into coffee farming, throws out the traditional rulebook on how to grow coffee in Brazil, bulk, commodity, cheap, and instead prioritizes specialty, where his passion is. But now he has the challenge of finding buyers for his beautiful specialty coffees. In this episode, part 1, I'm going to show you how Vicente's business model works and why selling coffee the traditional way just doesn't work for him. And then in the next episode, part 2, I'll show you all the ways he's breaking out of this traditional system to get better prices for his specialty coffees, including through my partner sponsor for this episode, Al Guarano, a platform that connects roasters and producers directly. Now, broadly speaking, here in Brazil, there are 2 traditional ways you can sell your coffee. One is selling your floor scrapings, and the second is selling to multinational exporters. And let's start with the funnest one. The floor scrapings. So we're on Vicente's farm, and he's showing me around the back of his mill.
Fruits,
And it's covered in fruit trees.
peach, mango, orange, and the others.
It's enormous oranges. They're like as big as a football.
And a little bit further behind is Vicente's shed, where I see the machine that makes Brazil the coffee growing powerhouse of the world.
Oh, here we go. Oh my God, this is it. This is the
the automatic picking machine. Yeah. Wow, look at this. This is a monster. It's enormous. Look at this. Is a coffee harvester. Jeez, it's like a tank.
Yeah.
You could take this onto the battlefield and scare all your enemies.
Maybe. I never thought about what. Brazilians are very peaceful
People.
people.
No, sure.
This is a tractor that passes over the top of coffee trees and plastic rods.
Like bristles, like you see in a car wash.
Whack the coffee trees, the cherries fall off, and they're collected in a trailer in the back.
What does this cost?
1 million.
Get out.
Yes.
$250,000.
Yes.
Wow.
But this coffee harvester creates the floor scrapings because as this machine knocks coffee off the trees, some of those cherries inevitably are going to fall on the ground. Which is why Vicente has another machine which goes round afterwards to scoop them up.
The RT 1200.
To collect the coffee on the floor.
That's kind of like one of those robot vacuum cleaners with...
Like a broom. Like a broom.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so this machine collects the floor scrapings, which Vicente has to collect. Otherwise, it's going to create pests and problems, under his trees. But these floor scrapings, it's still coffee, totally drinkable, and it's known as Escolina. And this Escolina floor scrapings, it only accounts for maybe 10%, at most 15% of his harvest. And I was really surprised to learn that here in Brazil, peeps adore Escolina.
They like this. They love this coffee.
And it is so easy, effortless for Vicente to sell this coffee. What happens during harvest? Small mom and pop roasteries,
Small family, small host company.
they find him.
Every year, they call us. Do you have the escolinha for me?
He sells it over the phone, and then they come to him to take the coffee.
Do they bring their own trucks as well?
Yes. Small trucks.
And the other great thing is he gets paid immediately.
Maybe paid in the same day, 1 day after, 2 days after.
It really doesn't get any easier. But as wonderful and easy it would be for Vicente to sell all his coffee like this, there's a problem.
Okay.
Oh, 837. That's very cheap.
The price. More or less $1 per pound of green coffee. And to explain to me why it's so cheap, Vicente took me to a local restaurant.
So here we are in a restaurant in Oliveira, trying some of the restaurant coffee.
The most popular coffee in Brazil. This coffee, the roast is very dark.
No sweetness,
No sweetness.
mostly just darker roast flavors.
But I gotta say, we have a chunk of raw, unrefined cane sugar.
Wow, this is a big piece of sugar.
It was pure candy dessert.
I couldn't finish this coffee without sugar. But with a bit of cane sugar, raw cane sugar, it's great.
And so why is this floor scrapings Escolina coffee so cheap? Well, this restaurant, they were giving it away for free. So, go figure. Vicente gets paid $1 a pound for this coffee. Would he be able to have a viable coffee farm if he only sold coffee at $1 a pound at these Escolina prices?
What is the price you need to be profitable?
I can show you in my plan.
Vicente opens his old laptop and starts up Excel.
My production cost is between 900 to 1,000. Eh?
Vicente's cost of production is $1.30 per pound. So short answer is no. He would be losing money on every pound of coffee he sold if he were to sell at Escolina prices. Now, although his production costs are $1.30 per pound, that doesn't mean that's the price he needs. He actually needs a price that's much higher than that, because Vicente has many, many more costs over and above just producing the coffee. And coming up next, I'm going to give you that number, the number he needs to be able to have a long-term viable coffee farm. But mind you, it's not a fixed number, like, $2 a pound or anything like that. It's a relative number that changes year on year. So, as we saw, Vicente selling those floor scrapings Escolina coffee he earns so little money from it that if he sold all this coffee this way, he may as well shut the farm tomorrow. What price then does he need to have a long-term, sustainable coffee farm prioritizing specialty coffee? Okay, now the short answer is the best differential he can get over and above the C price for his lower to mid-range specialty coffees, ideally best case scenario of 40% premium. This is how coffee farms in Brazil look at their business models and how it relates to the coffee price. And if that made absolutely zero sense to you, good, because I'm going to break it down step by step.
In Brazil, we need to pay attention with the price in New York.
And the first thing to explain is the commodity market for coffee, or C market for short. New York, tall glass skyscrapers. Inside, you got guys in these pinstripe suits, a lot of monitors everywhere, and they're making trades, making money. And some of the things they're trading are commodities. Steel, wool, soybeans, and coffee. And each sack of coffee is treated exactly the same. Coffee is coffee is coffee. There's nothing special about this coffee. In fact, this commodity coffee might be 75 points on an SCA scale. The kind of coffee that's produced by all the mega farms all around Vicente. It's not particularly sweet, no complexity, no discernible lovely flavor notes, just bog standard caffeine in a bean, roast it dark, put it in a cheap supermarket blend, boom. Generic, interchangeable coffee. Commodity coffee. And of course, there is a price for this kind of coffee. It's the global commodity price, the C price, which goes up and down every day. Great. Okay. But what drives those movements up and down every day? Well, the biggest driver is Brazil. Brazil, it's the largest coffee producing country in the world. And historically speaking, every time there's been a bad weather event that hit Brazilian coffee farms, like frost, drought, the commodity price for coffee shot up, right? Like classic supply and demand. Less coffee supply, higher coffee price. And at the time this episode drops in 2025, we are in a time of relatively high prices because of Brazil. Brazil is producing less at the moment, including Vicente. Vicente and all those mega farms all around him have seen their production fall.
It was terrible. It was a hard time. It was a big problem. Look here. Look, pay attention. This.
Yeah, basically you're slightly more than half of where you used to be. So why? What happened?
Climate changed. We had a time without rain.
These last few years, climate change has changed the rain patterns in this region, Minas Gerais, and therefore changed how much coffee all the coffee trees produce, both on Vicente's farm and the farms of all his neighbors. And so Vicente, as a coffee farmer, is in an unusual position compared to other farmers around the world. When we are in these periods of high prices, farmers around the world are very happy because they're earning a lot of money for their coffee. But for Vicente, he's kind of indifferent. The commodity price for coffee is high, most likely because he and all the farms next to him are not growing as much. Like if the weather was really, really good and he grew a lot, well, so too would all his neighbors, and the coffee price would fall. So although he has more to sell, each bag of coffee is now sold at a much lower price. And so what that means is that when Vicente thinks about what kind of prices he wants for his coffee, unlike most farmers in the world, he doesn't think about an absolute number, like, $2 a pound. He thinks about it relative to the C market, the commodity price for coffee. And he told me the average price he would love to get, the stretch goal price, best case scenario, is an average price that's 40% above the C market.
That is a number which is sustainable for you.
Yes, because with this money in Brazil, it's possible to invest and to improve, to keep the business. Every time investing, improve. Yeah.
40% above the C price, it's an average price that would allow him to take many, many more risks trying to produce different kinds of specialty coffees. He could take the risk to, replant a big chunk of his farm with very exotic varieties of coffee that may produce beautiful flavors, but maybe they won't yield as much. It's a risk. But if he doesn't get 40%, His farm will be okay. He'll survive. What Vicente needs at minimum, just to keep the farm ticking along to the next year is C price, maybe 10% above the C price. But 40% is where he would love to be. Now, Vicente loves a challenge. That's why he did this whole thing in the first place. But, whoo boy, he has set himself up for one hell of a challenge. Okay, so let me explain. The majority of his production is between 82 to 84 points, right? This is lower to mid-range specialty coffee. When you taste it, it has nice notes of cacao, bit of caramel, bit of sweetness, round body. I mean, nothing crazy distinctive or unique, but very pleasant. Vicente's problem is that this kind of coffee, it really struggles to get much more than the C price. He would love to get 40% above the C price for this kind of coffee, but a lot of things are pulling it down towards just the C price. Like what? Okay, so the first thing is lower to mid-range Brazilian specialty. It's mostly used in a specialty roaster's cheapest blend, their house blend. This is an espresso blend that gets used for milk drinks like cappuccinos and lattes, and for cafes and roasters, cappuccinos and lattes is a high-volume, low-margin product, and as a result, they have a very strong incentive to use the cheapest coffees they can get that still taste pretty good. The other problem is that there is a lot of supply of this particular kind of coffee from Brazil. And so roasters actually are spoiled for choice for this kind of coffee. They can shop around. And so what Vicente's trying to do here is get the highest price he can for a coffee where already there's a lot of supply and roasters are mostly interested in getting the lowest price possible. So with all that in mind now, we can go back to look at how Vicente sells his coffee in the traditional markets. And we're turning our attention to the multinational exporters. How far off is he from what he would like, 40% above the C price? So Vicente, he would love to get an average price of 40% above the C price. That's what will allow him to make big investments in his quality, really allow him to grow the farm in lots of interesting ways. Failing that, if he gets C price, maybe 10% above the C price, it's not great, but he'll carry through. Now, I showed you earlier the first traditional way he sells his coffee is by selling the floor scrapings for way, way under the C price, to the point where he may as well shut his farm tomorrow if he had to sell all his coffee that way. But what about the second way, traditional way, he could sell his coffee in Brazil? And that is to international exporters. Now, quick primer on what an exporter does. There are many companies in Brazil who buy coffee from farmers. Once they buy that coffee, they own that coffee. And then they put that coffee on containers. They send that coffee across the world and then sell the coffee to roasters. And once Vicente has sold his coffee to the exporter, he doesn't lift a finger. They take care of everything, the logistics, the paperwork, the insurance, finding roasters on the other side of the world to sell to. And I was amazed at how easy these multinational exporters make it for Vicente to sell them his coffee.
The principal buyers of my coffee is Olam.
Currently, Vicente sells a lot of his coffees to Olam. They're a big coffee trader, does import, export, and Olam have made it so easy for Vicente to sell them his coffee. Literally, all Vicente has to do is reach down into his pocket, pull out his phone. This app is from Olam.
Yes.
This is Olam's app.
Olam.
Opens an app that Olam made specifically for people like him. So it's really on you to decide, when do I want to sell?
Yes. I decide. It's very easy.
Vicente ponders, how much do I want to sell? He puts in a number, a ton, 2 tons. The app gives him a price.
I can accept.
Boom, coffee sold.
The man called me. When you deliver your coffee? Oh, next Monday. Okay, good.
Vicente flicks the WhatsApp to the local guy that will transport the coffee. Monday rolls around, guy comes, picks up the coffee.
I deliver the coffee on Monday.
And he gets paid really quick.
And on Tuesday, they pay me.
Wow. That's really fast.
Very fast.
Super convenient.
super, and I can do the sale where I am.
You could be in China and you could do a sale.
Yes.
So easy. But the big question, how much do they pay?
Holland, the last year, the price was not very competitive.
Unfortunately, this is the trade-off. Olam offer Vicente, get ready for this, 20% below the C price. Not above the C price, not the C price, 20% below the C price. So these are the prices you are being given, which are below C market prices today.
Okay?
Which I gotta say, I found this really wild that a specialty coffee, 83 points, would be bought at 20% below the commodity price? A coffee that tastes so much better than a commodity coffee is selling for below the price of a commodity coffee? Now, there are many reasons why Olam and other exporters pay about 20% below the C price for Vicente's 83-point specialty coffee. I won't list them all here, but a big one worth mentioning is the fact that, the way Vicente's coffee is used, in house espresso blends for milk drinks, Olam are going to struggle themselves to sell this kind of coffee for maybe much more than the C price. And look, they're a business. They've got to make their margins. And how are they going to do that? Well, you pay the producers less than the C price. This is the traditional system. Now, those mega farms all around Vicente, they will take that price offered by the multinational exporters like Olam, and their coffee farms are going to work financially because their entire business model, the way they produce coffee, it's all about economies of scale. But Vicente has taken a different approach to prioritize specialty, and his costs are much higher. He hired Jessica. He puts all that time and investment into roasting, sampling the quality of his coffee. All this to say, if Vicente were to keep selling his coffee into this traditional system to these multinational exporters and receiving prices that are 20% below the C market, that would drive a nail in the coffin of his business model. There is no way he could have a coffee farm that focuses on growing delicious specialty coffees.
It's not enough. It's not enough. Because with this, I'm using my capital to increase, to add value, to invest in the farm.
And that is why Vicente has to break out of this traditional system of selling coffee and find a new way. Different buyers who will offer a better price. And if Vicente can pull it off, many farmers in the region might be wondering to themselves, could we do what Vicente did as well and prioritize growing specialty over commodity? We too don't need to play by this old traditional rulebook. In the next episode, part 2, we look at Vicente's journey, stepping out of the traditional system, throwing out the rulebook, and trying to find better buyers. Will he be the beacon of inspiration or a cautionary tale?